Hello everyone. Welcome to my YNR 24 spoilers. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Mariah and Tessa's meeting and Noah's medical emergency. According to spoilers for the upcoming 2 weeks of The Young and the Restless, there will be some surprises and twists. Noah Newman will be dealing with a serious medical situation from October 13th to October 24th. Mariah Copeland is up against Tessa Porter in the meantime. Furthermore, how can Kane Ashby improve his reputation using AI? Let's discuss the upcoming events in the CBS soap opera as you continue reading. Noah Newman's health issue. Let's talk about the upcoming events from October 13th to October 17th before moving on to the 2-weekers. Sharon Newman first travels alone to Los Angeles to meet Noah. But when she is unable to locate her son, she becomes worried. Neither of them is really concerned at this point, but Sharon contacts Nick to give him an update. When Sharon learns that Noah was involved in a terrible vehicle accident, everything changes. The blonde is reminded of Cassie Newman's ordeal. The woman sobs as she phones Nick. Nick then goes to Los Angeles with Sharon a little later in the week to see how Noah is doing. They eventually run into an enigmatic stranger, the past of Holden Novak. And in LA are Claire Grace Newman and Holden Novak. At a club, the blonde is all decked out and beaming. Holden presents Sienna Bacall to Claire. At that point, Sienna continues to discuss Holden's relationship with Audra Charles. How embarrassing! The meeting of Mariah Copeland and Tessa Porter. Additionally, Tessa is said to be going to meet Mariah. Something was discovered by Tessa and Daniel Jr. as they were exploring the Boston hotel room. Tessa is quite worried about Mariah's safety because of it. Spoilers for the next 2 weeks of The Young and the Restless. Fans will find out how Claire and Holden's journey turns out during the week of October 20th. We are aware that Kyle Abbott attempts to obtain Victoria Newman's hotel address. Will Holden's troubled past make Kyle's timing ideal, or will he destroy Claire's escape? Additionally, Kane has a plan to use AI for the better. Phyllis Summers is expected to provide some suggestions on how to accomplish this. Additionally, anticipate a deeper relationship between Victoria and Nate Hastings. But keep an eye out because Audra might find it difficult to manage. Noah's mishap ignites Sharon and Nick's subsequent romantic opportunity. According to spoilers for The Young and the Restless, Noah Newman's accident sets up the situation in which Sharon and Nick Newman are reunited by force. Longtime admirers of this former couple are left wondering whether a reunion will happen as a result. Interesting is the recast of Noah, who was last portrayed by Rory Gibson. When the audience last saw him, he was rumored to have relocated to Europe with Jack Abbott's granddaughter, Allie Abbott Gwynn. Noah's tragedy brings back bitter memories of Cassie Newman's death in the 2000s from injuries sustained in a car accident. The one and only marriage between Sharon and Nick ended with that vehicle tragedy. Gone but never forgotten, Cassie Newman. If a vehicle catastrophe involving another child allowed Sharon and Nick to reunite, that would be soap opera justice. Cassie's passing had an incalculable influence on this program. This was the plot device that allowed Sharon and Nick to be split up, for whatever reason, according to the people in authority at the time in YNR's history. It did, and there have been significant repercussions ever since. Fortunately, imaginative imaginations permitted Grimes, the kid actor prodigy, to make a comeback. Although she occasionally appeared as Cassie in angelic form, she eventually returned to the role of Mariah Copeland on a full-time basis. The plot, in which Sharon discovered that Ian Ward had taken Mariah from her at birth and brought her up in a cult, was amazing. Noah Newman is returning to the game. For years, the Noah persona has been in and out of GC. Thus, the return of this member of Sharon and Nick's family is welcome. Given the recast, it's reasonable to expect that Noah won't end up like Cassie. But daytime is a funny bird, and it's hard to predict what will happen to any recently returned character. Hopefully, the new Noah will return indefinitely. Since Wong's character had a lot of plot to work out when she was sent to Europe with Noah, it will be intriguing to see if Allie makes a comeback as well. There are a lot of possibilities for future stories because Allie is a part of the Abbott family. Nick Newman is a man of family. Talk about him in any way. But Nick is a family man, and no one in GC can ever argue otherwise. Since he turned his life around after betraying Sharon and switching to Phyllis Summers, it has been his first concern. In a strange story that had them abducted earlier this year, Sharon and Phyllis surprisingly became close. That was a fantastic narrative that demonstrated both women's exceptional talent. It goes without saying that until Noah recovers, Sharon and Nick will put him first. After that, there will be another chance for one of the soap opera's most famous couples to get back together in real life after being apart for almost 20 years. The upcoming 2 weeks of The Young and the Restless will delve deeply into the most emotionally complicated family in Genoa City, combining tragedy, suspense, and introspection. Unexpected connections between the past, present, and future may be seen in Kane Ashby's redemption arc, Mariah Copeland's encounter with Tessa Porter, Noah Newman's catastrophic tragedy, and the expanding impact of artificial intelligence. Lives will be irrevocably altered as the fall winds blow through the soap opera landscape, and old wounds might finally start to mend. 1. The medical crisis of Noah Newman. Reverberations of history. Sharon Newman has endured the silent pain of loss for years. It never really goes away. In addition to being a tragedy for her family, Cassie Newman's passing in the early 2000s completely changed Sharon's course in life. Since that night, sadness, remorse, and the unending desire to change history have shaped every choice she has made. Thus, the world falls apart beneath Sharon's feet once more when she gets the call that her son Noah has been in a terrible vehicle accident. That morning, Sharon was already feeling anxious. After weeks of sporadic communication, she had gone to Los Angeles by herself to see how her kid was doing. The mother's sense that something was amiss was prescient, not paranoid. Unease gave way to fear when she couldn't find him at his apartment and he wasn't picking up his phone. Nevertheless, Sharon made an effort to remain composed, figuring that Noah was probably preoccupied with a project or a deadline. However, as the day went on, that justification began to falter. She voiced her worries to Nick, her former spouse and dependable anchor. Nick had comforted her, "He's fine, Sharon," in a confident yet kind way. "You're familiar with Noah. While working, he loses himself in his thoughts. For a few hours, give him time." Sharon wanted to believe him. She had to trust him. Then the phone rang once more, but Noah wasn't the one answering. The Los Angeles Police Department was involved. The officer spoke in a calm but solemn tone. After a serious vehicle accident on Mulholland Drive, Noah had been discovered unconscious. Sharon's heart stopped beating. As she gripped the phone, every muscle in her body shook. Head trauma, unconscious, and critical but stable were all jumbled together, and while the final sentence gave some optimism, Sharon was quickly slipping into memories she had suppressed for years. Cassie, the medical facility, the sterile scent of fear and antiseptic, the vision of her daughter, broken but calm, murmuring, "It wasn't your fault, Mom." Sharon struggled to breathe as the past and present clashed in her head. Hours later, Nick discovered Sharon sitting outside the intensive care unit, ICU, with her hands gripped tightly and her knuckles white. Neither said anything for a while. They were not obliged to. The silence was filled with their common history. It was a sterile hallway where decades of love, loss, betrayal, and forgiveness flowed about them. This time, fate had given them another opportunity to confront their problems together, but it was Cassie all over again. 2. Los Angeles' stranger. Sharon and Nick's only concern was saving their son while the medical staff struggled to stabilize Noah. However, a tall man in his 40s with sharp features and an eerie familiarity started to emerge around the hospital as the week went on. He identified himself as Dr. Evan, a trauma expert who is in charge of Noah's recuperation. Nick was uneasy about him, though. His manner was too intense, his inquiries were too specific, and his historical knowledge was a bit too exact. "Because I was there that night," he said with a faint smile when Sharon questioned him about how he knew so much about Cassie's accident, information that wasn't public knowledge. "I worked as an ER intern. I will always remember what I witnessed and the impact it had on your family." Sharon felt shivers as she realized it. Was this man just a coincidence, or did the ghosts of their past have a deeper link to Noah's current state? The coincidence didn't convince Nick. He started researching Doctor's background and found a series of contradictions. Was Noah's collision genuinely an accident, or was there a darker motive at work? Nick's protective instincts returned as the likelihood that their son had been the subject of someone's attention started to solidify. In ways she hadn't in years, Sharon found herself gravitating to Nick as Noah teetered on the brink of death. A long-dormant fire of connection was rekindled by his steady presence, comforting words, and even the silent times when he put his palm over hers. After years of telling herself that she and Nick were better off apart, Sharon's love for Nick returned to life in that hospital room as she watched their kid battle for his life. 3. Claire's awakening and the past of Holden Novak. Holden Novak and Claire Grace Newman, Haley Aaron, were dealing with a different kind of emotional storm across town at the same time. Holden was hoping to seal a big media contract, and Claire was hoping to get away from Genoa City's never-ending drama by traveling to Los Angeles for work. However, old wounds were revived when Holden introduced Claire to a stunning but acerbic entertainment executive named Sienna Bacall. In Holden's life, the name Sienna held significance. She and Holden had a complex, tense relationship that ended in treachery years ago. Without wasting any time, Sienna reminded Claire of this history and hinted to Holden's previous relationships, including one with Audra Charles. Claire, who had only recently started to have faith in Holden, was taken aback. As Sienna's comments pierced deeper, Holden's composed manner did little to soothe her. "You believe you're the first woman Holden has attempted to save?" "Believe me, sweetheart, he is a certain sort." The stress in that posh LA. There was a sense of club, torn between instinct and emotion. Claire excused herself to the bathroom, only to find herself doubting everything while gazing into the mirror. She was stronger, wiser, but still susceptible to the tricks of love, unlike the gullible Newman heir who had once been tricked by Aunt Jordan. Claire's thoughts were racing with uncertainty as she left the club early. Holden followed, adamant that his past had no influence on his feelings for her and that Sienna's remarks meant nothing. But Claire muttered, "You said you wanted to protect me," her eyes glossy with suppressed tears. "So why do I constantly feel like you're closer to danger than I am?" 4. Tessa and Mariah's argument. Back in Genoa City, Mariah Copeland and Tessa Porter were having yet another heated argument. Once the lighthouse of unwavering love on the soap opera, she had faced innumerable difficulties, including distance, disagreements in her work, and the difficulties of motherhood. However, this most recent event threatened to erode their confidence once more. Something about the disturbing evidence Tessa and Daniel Jr. found in a hotel room during their investigation in Boston frightened her. Whatever it was, she thought it had some connection to Mariah that may put her in risk. As soon as Tessa got home, she went straight to her wife. Mariah, defensive and perplexed, demanded explanations. The stress rapidly increased. "When I saw that photo in the hotel room, your name scribbled on that envelope, the timestamp, the documents, I knew someone's been following you," Tessa continued, her voice shaking. Mariah stopped. "Are you following me?" "What are you talking about, Tessa?" With tears in her eyes, Tessa answered, "It's related to your previous life. Not everyone who abducted you from Sharon was arrested, including Ian Ward's cult. Someone is attempting to revive that past." Mariah's face turned white. Her long-buried wounds were reopened when Ian Ward was brought up. She had thought that part of her life was over for so long. The ghosts of her lost youth, however, were emerging if Tessa was correct, and they might not only be haunting her. The altercation evolved into a marriage reckoning. Mariah accused Tessa of concealing facts, but Tessa insisted that her only goal was to keep her safe. It was a devastating reverberation of the conflict between love, fear, and mistrust that had plagued Sharon and Nick years before. Mariah needed time to reflect, so by night's end she withdrew to the Chancellor residence. However, she felt as though history was being repeated as she gazed at the framed picture of herself, Cassie and Sharon, two children who were destined to be together. 5. Kane Ashby's redemption via AI. In the midst of the emotional turmoil, Kane Ashby was getting ready to rise again. Over the years, his reputation in Genoa City had suffered from betrayal, controversy, and deception. Phyllis Summers was a surprising ally of Kane, who was now determined to remake himself. Their scheme? Kane asserted that using artificial intelligence would revolutionize transparency and business ethics. However, ever the strategist, Phyllis had a sneaking suspicion that he had more in mind. Although she had been assigned to investigate novel approaches to using AI to restore public confidence, she couldn't get rid of the suspicion that Kane's goals were more about power than atonement. Kane made a strong and convincing appeal to investors. In a polished boardroom presentation, he stated, "AI does not just predict behavior. It has the ability to fix it. It can make us better, smarter, and more responsible." Those who knew him saw the irony. However, Kane had more sinister goals in private. His algorithms were created to gather behavioral information about his competitors, such as the Abbotts, and weren't just for business use. Kane would have the greatest advantage if he were successful. Foresight. Phyllis was the lone wild card, though. She wasn't a woman who was easily tricked. She was cautious of Kane's easy charm because of her keen instincts and past experiences with betrayal. Late one night, she was searching through lines of code when she came across encrypted files that revealed Kane's mission wasn't as honorable as he claimed. She was unaware that Kane was already observing her via the AI system she was assisting him in creating. 6. The October 20th to 24th 2-week spiral. The emotional stakes rise as the second week progresses. Noah eventually regains consciousness at the hospital, although there is a noticeable sense of relief. The mystery surrounding his crash is further revealed when he whispers to Sharon, "He was there! Cassie's angel he stopped me from," before passing out again. Sharon feels shook. Did Noah actually see someone or something that night, or was he just having hallucinations? Her spiritual side informs her that Cassie is still there, keeping watch over them. However, Nick, who is always realistic, believes that trauma or, worse, manipulation may have distorted Noah's thinking. In the meantime, Cal Abbott attempts to locate Claire by asking Victoria Newman for the hotel address. His timing is just bad. Holden's paranoia only grows as a result of Kyle's meddling in Claire and Holden's failing relationship. A mission of worry soon turns into a powder keg of distrust and jealousy. When Phyllis returns to Genoa City and reports her findings to Kane, the exchange is tense. She narrows her eyes and informs him, "You say you want redemption, but this project screams control, not compassion." For the first time, Kane's facade falters. "Red, do you believe I'm the bad guy?" "Perhaps I am. At least I'm not acting like a saint, though." A risky game of cat and mouse is started by their transaction. Both are excellent. Both are vicious. They are both concealing secrets. 7. Rekindled love in the face of crisis. As Noah's recuperation continues, Sharon and Nick's previous routine reappears. In ways that are painfully familiar, they find themselves leaning on one another, smiling quietly, and finishing each other's words. Years' worth of separation, animosity, and sorrow have been erased by the crisis. One evening, Sharon murmurs, "We've lost so much, Nick," as they gaze out Noah's hospital window at the sunset. Perhaps it's time to quit escaping what's left. Nick's voice is firm but quiet as he looks at her. Both of us have evolved. However, perhaps it is precisely why we can return. Their reunion is a patient, gentle reawakening rather than a passionate whirlwind. It is based on respect for one another, shared wounds, and the silent knowledge that true love never really dies. The emotional, full-circle moment, two individuals drawn together by tragedy once more, but possibly destined for healing rather than heartbreak, is palpable to fans who have followed since the late 1990s. 8. The legacy of Cassie. Cassie's memory hangs over Noah's suffering like a watchful angel. "Mom, it's not about saving him," Cassie says softly as she appears at the edge of a meadow in Sharon's vivid visions. It is about self-forgiveness. Sharon uses these images as her emotional compass. She starts to view Noah's tragedy as an opportunity to end the decades-long cycle of guilt rather than as a punishment. The family was once devastated by Cassie's passing. Maybe Noah's survival would finally bring them together. Sharon breaks down in tears, not out of terror but out of relief, as Noah finally opens his eyes completely and cries for his mother. In some inexplicable way, Cassie's spirit has led them to this point. Later, as Mariah, Tessa, Faith, Nick, and Sharon are gathered around Noah's bedside, it is evident that they have been bestowed with a unique gift, time. Give yourself time to recover. It's time to extend forgiveness. It's time to start over. 9. The silence ahead of the next storm. However, a storm is subtly building in the background, even as the Newman family starts to find comfort. The real motivations of Dr. Evan are still unclear. Although he was not an innocent witness, he does have a real connection to Cassie's death. He may have fabricated medical records decades ago at the request of someone with close ties to Genoa City, according to evidence that has surfaced. Tessa gets a mysterious message on her phone in the meantime. A picture of Mariah taken a few hours prior outside the Crimson Lights cafe with the words, "You can't hide from the past." Across town, Kane turns on a secret subroutine in his AI program that starts tracking down everyone who has betrayed him, including Victor Newman, Jack, and Phyllis. What is the name of the system? Project Redemption. 10. A history of loss and love. The emotional tone changes from hopelessness to cautious optimism by the end of the 2-week arc. Noah will have a long road to recovery, but he is strengthened by his parents' rekindled relationship. Once split apart by sorrow, Sharon and Nick now stand together as partners rediscovering their purpose rather than as lovers defined by grief. As they come to understand that their love, like that of Sharon and Nick, can endure even the specters of the past, Mariah and Tessa also start to regain trust. However, the question of who is watching Mariah remains unanswered, suggesting that the cult's sinister history is far from done. Each character is shown reflecting as the camera moves across Genoa City. Sharon is shown gazing at Cassie's picture. Nick is shown covering her hand with his. Phyllis is shown watching Kane's presentation on a low screen with narrowed eyes, and Claire is shown standing on her hotel balcony, contemplating whether love is possible without secrets. The story completes a cycle by reflecting on how previous transgressions affect future generations and how love, given another chance, has the power to change fate. Epilogue. Cassie Newman's spirit. This arc ends with Sharon sitting by herself at Crimson Lights after business hours. The lighting are gentle and the cafe is silent. "I hope I made you proud," she murmurs as she looks at an old picture of Cassie. For a brief moment, Sharon feels a warm, comforting hand on her shoulder as a breeze rustles the drapes. When she turns, nobody is there. Then, in a faint voice, she hears Cassie say, "You did, Mom," in the same soft tone as in her nightmares. "At last you did." Sharon's eyes brim up with tears, but they are tears of serenity this time. Genoa City, a community forever shaped by love, grief, and the strong bonds of family, disappears into the darkness as the camera moves away and the music rises.